My wife Julie has her hands on some freshly cut rhubarb right from the garden. That can only mean one thing. She's making something very tasty. Rhubarb pie with a twist. This is Raisin Rhubarb pie that she made specifically for my dad. And he was one happy customer. We're going to show you how she made this. To get things started, Julie likes to chop up those rhubarb stalks into small pieces. She likes to keep these pieces to a 1/4 inch maximum in length. And she's going to chop up enough to have 1½ cups of chopped rhubarb. And just by eyeballing it, Julie was able to get that 1½ cups exactly. I was impressed. She knew exactly how many rhubarb it was going to be a cup and a half. That's impressive. With the rhubarb all set and ready to go, she moves that aside and moves on to making the crust, starting off with 1 tablespoon of 2% milk. And there we go. That gets followed up with 1/4 cup of water right into that same pot, and then we give it a dash of salt. Then we're going to put this aside so it's ready when we need it.
I'm not going to start it now.
So again, no heat on this quite yet.
I have to get the 3/4 cup. Someone took my 3/4 cup. Your son, who every day I have the same dishes, little measuring cups, all of them practically, because he measures everything he eats.
Yeah, our son is always using her measuring cups. And there's 3/4 cup of shortening into a new bowl, getting ready to make the crust. Then she follows that up with 2 cups of flour right into that same bowl. And now we can place that pot on the burner and set that to a medium-high temperature and quickly bring this to a boil. And this gives Julie just enough time to lay out 2 15 by 15 inch squares of parchment paper. Well, maybe not squares, but you get the idea. And back at the stovetop, our pot has just reached that boiling point. So now we're going to immediately take that off the burner and pour that into our large bowl. And then you want to immediately mix this up nice and thoroughly. Julie prefers to throw on the plastic gloves and mix it by hand. It might be a little hot at first, so you want to be careful, but you can also use other methods. Just want to make sure this is fully mixed. And she does mix this by hand for 1 minute and 40 seconds here, but we're going to speed this up. And take a quick moment to invite you to click that subscribe button to see more videos from our family just like this. And now we're going to bring Julie back to normal speed, which is generally hard to do. She's always moving pretty quick, but you can see how she's got that dough nicely mixed. And she's got that ready for the parchment paper. She places that right in the middle of the parchment paper as a ball and then slowly flattens this out nice and evenly. And once she's got a nice start on this, she grabs that other sheet of parchment paper, places that right over the top, and grabs that handy dandy rolling pin and rolls this out to a nice thin crust. Let's take a moment to watch her do her thing. Julie likes to use the 9-inch pie dish, so she's going to pull that out and compare that to her crust. Looks good. You want a nice overhang on that crust. Remove that 1 sheet of parchment paper, and then she flips it right on over into that pie dish. And once she has that spread over the top, she slowly molds that pie crust into the shape of the dish, starting at the bottom and just kind of slowly pressing it down into the bottom, then works up the sides. Then when she gets to that point, she can peel off that parchment paper. And there we go. And once that parchment paper is off, she just goes over this once again with her hands, making sure everything is pressed firmly into the dish, eliminating any air pockets that might be in there between the crust and the dish. And she can do a little patchwork along the crust as well. Now you can certainly use a pre-made pie crust, but making this super flaky homemade pie crust makes it so much better. We've got this pie crust nice and thin, and this is also giving us some nice excess to trim off the edges. And we're going to use all this excess pie crust to create a top layer of crust. But we're first going to work on the filling. Starting off with 1 large egg, beaten into a large bowl, and oops, yeah, gotta be careful of those eggshells. There we go. As I was saying, you beat 1 large egg into a nice mixing bowl. And here she's adding 1 cup of sugar into that same bowl. Perfect. And then we move on to a half a teaspoon of salt right into that bowl as well. Next up to join the filling is 1 tablespoon of flour. And now is the perfect time to start preheating the oven to 425 degrees. See, I'm helping too. Julie putting me to work here. Man, I just have to do everything around here. Camera work, pushing buttons, and now I'm pushing her buttons. But you can see that she's doing the mixing here of that bowl. So she's mixing that up with a rubber spatula and gets that a nice thorough mixing before adding in anything else. That's looking nice and smooth and creamy there. It must be time to add the rhubarb. And there's that 1.5 cups of chopped rhubarb that we started this whole process off with. Now let's look at those raisins. And here she goes with exactly 1 cup of raisins and adds that right into the bowl as well. And then she's going to grab that rubber spatula again and give this a nice thorough mixing, which was about 20 seconds for her as we speed her up here. And once she's happy with that mixture, she has that pie crust in the dish standing by, and she adds that in nice and evenly into that pie dish. And you certainly want to get as many of those ingredients into this bowl and into the pie. As you can see here, making sure she gets everything off of the bottom of that bowl. And then she's going to flatten this out evenly across that pie just to make sure it bakes evenly. That is starting to look pretty darn good there, but we got one more step here. We got to lay on that top layer of pie crust. And she has grabbed that leftover pie crust from the first layer, and she's doing the same process again with 2 pieces of parchment paper, again rolling this out. And for this top layer, she goes just a bit thinner here, just to stretch out. You don't want a whole lot of crust on there, but just a nice thin layer of crust on top, just to fully cover the top of the pie. And that looks like it's going to do the job just fine. So just carefully peel off that parchment paper from that top layer, just making sure not to tear this. You just want to be careful when you get started taking this off so you don't tear into your pie crust. So you can see that Julie just uses small, quick little pulls there just to slowly get this off, and just a little patience will do the job. And you can see her just grabbing a piece from that parchment paper just to do a little bit of a quick repair job. Perfect. And now it's time just to make a quick lap around that full pie crust, pressing the edges of the top pie crust into the bottom pie crust. And a nice simple way to finish this crust off is to use a fork to do a simple crimping all the way around the sides, just to give it more of a final and completed look. Nice. And now she's grabbed a simple kitchen knife and she's going to cut a good sized X right in the top of that crust. This is pretty important just to make sure you get good venting in the baking process. Otherwise the crust might crack or it might burst a little bit and you'll get some of the filling to run out inside the oven. You don't want that, so you want to make a nice good vent. Now she's just pouring out a quick splash of milk, and she's going to use a basic kitchen brush and brush on a thin layer of milk all across the top of this crust. This is just going to help out with creating a little bit more browning on that crust throughout the baking process, and will actually give a nice little layer for the sprinkled sugar to stick on that we'll pour on next. And at this point the oven is done preheating, so we're ready to go into that middle shelf of the oven, and this bakes at 425 degrees for exactly 15 minutes in this first round of baking. And after that 15 minutes you want to lower that temperature to 350 degrees and bake for another 20 to 25 minutes. And after 20 minutes, this is what ours looked like. It's not quite ready yet. We'd like to see a little bit more browning there, so we're going to go another 5 minutes. And here's what we look like after the full 25 minutes. That's looking really good. We're calling that done. This is looking really good. We're going to go deliver this right away to my mom and dad. And here we are, a quick 25 minutes later at my mom and dad's house. My dad digging in right away. And boy, this was quite tasty. This actually became his favorite rhubarb pie. And be sure to check out another video from our channel right up here. We always enjoy reading your comments below, so please do share. Until next time, God bless.